First off, thank the Dunlop Art Gallery for treating me so well and for the honor of having my work presented here. The encouragement isn't lost on me. And I really want to thank Blair Fornwald for being such a great curator to work with. Over the period of time that we've been developing the ideas for the show, it's been really great to unpack the work and come up with new ideas and to get to know Blair and ultimately to come and be able to develop a new exhibition here. It's really exciting and fulfilling to me, and I'm very grateful for it. So for the presentation, it's going to be a whirlwind romp through 20 years of work. I think there's about 48 images, or well, no, maybe 45 images and 3 text screens. I've tried to create a few little categories for the various types of work I do, and hopefully those are useful. Well, a lot of the work is humorous. The text panels are not. So let's see here. So yeah, and so this is sort of the bridge, the humorous and confusingly not humorous title, which, because my work is fairly eclectic in various media, looking at different pursuits, I speak about the attempt to make it look sequentially intentional, because at times it may not seem like the works are connected, but there is a thread. And this is one of the categories. Institutional critique is what might seem to be guiding some of the work, so the next 20 or so images, I think. But you'll see some of them engage with site influences. They highlight architectural utterances or the way that sites make meaning. And some of them play with the ideas of museological presentation. This is an early piece. It's called New York of the North Promenade. And it was playing with the idea that Toronto sometimes is referred to as a New York of the North. So I created a space for the people to mill about and have social engagements. The t-shirt, the flags are actually t-shirts that say they asked me to smash the system with art. All they got was this t-shirt. And then there's the big banner that says, nice art, too bad about the artist. This is Where Was I? Map of the world, covered again and again and again with floating words that say where, or I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And I lit it like it was out in a desolate road. You tell me your history, I'll tell you mine. That's a Grecian urn that I took to an English pub. I had them batter it and deep fry it. And over the course of the show, all of the fat ran out and I had to go and clean it periodically. It was awful. But it made the point I wanted to make. Critical tragedy. There's a pair of shoes there with a pile of ashes beside them. The poster on the easel and the poster lying down are both for the band Rage Against the Machine. And they co-opted a photo of a monk who immolated himself during the Vietnam War to protest the war. So there's a lecture that was about to start about this, but the lecturer spontaneously combusted. This is at the Royal Ontario Museum, and it's a gorilla holding a kitchen mop. So we asked that you please not touch the monkey. I was interested in the way that the museum constructs narratives around history, our relationship to primates, etc. And I was also interested in the idea of hygiene as a form of tool, and so that would be funny. This is a video that showed last night. There's also a photo shoot. It's Where the Cat's At. Got permission to get a feline to explore the Art Gallery of Ontario's galleries. So it exists as a silent video and as a suite of photographs. And I'd say never work with animals. This is a door, an altered door, going from one exhibition space to another. So actually, originally the cat video was showing inside the mouth if you step through it. And it was interesting how people were very unnerved by having to step through the smiling mouth. But this, again, is all these themes sort of dealing with the idea of the institution. This mud solutions gallery spot where people could take the mud and apply it to the gallery wall. So all different ways, I guess, of drawing attention or exploring the space where the meetings are happening. Whether you're walking through the mouth or smearing mud on the wall or watching a cat turn the space into something else. And on a limb. So I got the mannequin holding a flag up at the top of the flagpole. Kind of like a parable of engaged citizenship. And this is, it says, a proposal, tilt this building 5 degrees to the right. This is in an area of Toronto where condos are moving in, displacing old businesses. So on one hand, this is a thought experiment to get people to imagine it happening, and another, it's a bit of a pun on how the neighborhood is turning more to the right politically as speculative condo owners move in. Pedestals for people. These are using gallery pedestals and plinths and turning it into a live workstation. So you see there's sleeping bags and blankets inside the turned over pedestals so you can sleep in there. There's a collection box for food to be donated. There's a desk and there's a table there. So the only problem is if this were situated outside, you'd be pretty cold. This is a work that's actually in the exhibition upstairs, Synthesis. So it shows somebody tearing a page out of a book of Buckminster Fuller's work and crumpling up a photo of one of his geodesic domes and turning it into a little shape that echoes the shape of the dome. I'm interested in the whole cult of personality around those forms. Oh yeah. So this is Burnable Contemporary Art Gallery. It's a multiple that's for sale. On the inside of it are the forms that if you assemble them, they look like the thing on the lower left, which is a gallery with a tower. It comes with a piece of tin foil, so you can crumple it, put the tin foil on top, so it looks like a Frank Gehry, and then you light it on fire. And panoptics. It looks like a security camera, but it's actually a fishbowl. So when you get underneath, you'll see tropical fish that are looking down at you from inside. So panoptics is a pun both on the Foucault essay on the panopticon about ubiquitous surveillance, but it's also about Pan, the god of fields and streams. This is perimeter, and it had sound inside the pipes, so when you got close you could hear different animals calling, bears, wolves, little critters, birds. So playing with the whole idea of bringing the inside outside, or the outside inside. And through new eyes, these are plinths that have been equipped with pigeon spikes. So both playing on the idea of what the presentation of the plinth, how the plinth presents things, but also rendering them unusable in another way. So it's a double pun on that. And then in the middle, there's a glass case with baby proofing around it. And at the opening, a child actually walked right up to it and started hitting their head against it. This is a skateboard that I did. I was volunteering at an alternative school, and so I did this design for an auction. And you'll see there's some architecture in there on the bottom left. Tower of Babel has the Facebook headquarters on fire. Buckminster Fuller's dome, I'm going to go back, proliferating polyps of other domes. And then on the right is Marcel Duchamp's nude taking a skateboard down a staircase. And on the bottom of the skateboard, you can also see there's a shark, one of the sharks from one of those movies. It's a shark with octopus tentacles. I was playing to my audience. So this is spoiler, where I cut a text bracket shape out of one wall and then fastened it to the adjacent wall to play on the idea of the space as a space that contains meaning. And so on the bottom right, you can see the view from behind. You can see that the wall was made out of chipboard, and part of the stud is still stuck to the back of it. And then I've done performance from time to time, and I'm interested in engaging with the public, so there's a number of works that I've done that follow through that. So this is a selection of works that either use performance or are about performance or relational aesthetics. So Art That Says Hello is a series that I've gone back to a number of times. It started as street performances where I did things like dressed up in a uniform and tried to talk people into letting me paint their shoes yellow. I pushed a ladder around, which you'll see on the left, upper left, let people climb up, open a window, and smell flowers. I had a backdrop of the moon's surface, and people could stand on it, and I'd take photos of their feet as though they were standing on the moon. And then there's the postcards. The lower left is of a location of a shortcut, so you could actually find that shortcut and go use it. And there's the mural on the right, and hello, hello. So it was playing with the idea of courtesy as an aesthetic unto itself, and it was also playing with ideas of masculinity, dressing up in a uniform that actually makes me safe and approachable because I look like a harmless goofball. And it was a series that I did videos for as well. One of them was shown last night. This is Courtesy Bench. When you sit on the bench, there's speakers and a digital unit underneath, so when you sit on it, my voice says, hello. I don't know if people like that. And this is Soft Spots. It's a floor made out of memory foam with elasticized paint. So as you walk across it, your footprints stay in it, and they hold texture for almost a minute. So when you cross it, it's almost like watching a ghost walking across the surface, and then the footprints slowly disappear. So it's slightly poignant, maybe. This is from a video that was shown last night, Incidental Park Zones, and the installation shot on the right is from the Mackenzie. I was in an exhibition there curated by Timothy Long, I think in 2002, or 2001. And so the idea of the video and the incidental park zones is that we can create a social space where we can bridge the gap between us by doing strange gestures like staring and pointing at the ground or at the sky. And when people come over to ask us what's going on, there we have an opportunity to socialize and bridge that gap. So by being weird, we get to meet people. And so in the upper left is the plaque, the postcard. It was used as signage, but it says 3 ways to be a park. So pause, pose, participate. And then in the lower left, there's a video kiosk that was shown in another show. So and we've done the performance in Vancouver as well. They weren't any more friendly than Toronto. This is a piece I did in Amsterdam where I took plants and digital watches and I wrote on them. It says, "When this plant ceases, what's between us is gone." And I left these out in public for people to find. And what I was hoping for was to both imply a relationship between the person who left the plant and create a real relationship with the people who found it. And because the plant and the watches have a kind of lifespan, it was hoping to engage them in a different way. And you can see on the right the fellow finding the plant. And he stood there staring at it for a while and picked it up, and he was very pleased. This is part of the Art That Says Hello series. S is for shortcut, and this was done in Vancouver. So there's a board in a coffee shop. It's got a postcard on the right which shows the location of a shortcut you can use. It also has a map and pins and cards, so you can write the location of a shortcut and connect it to the card with a colored thread so other people can use your shortcut. This is a performance I did called The Role of the Artist, where I hired a stuntman, and at the bottom of the hill I gave a little spiel about myth and the importance of myth, but how myth is a drag. And then me and the stuntman pushed the barrel up the hill. I pretended to get in it. They took photos of me in it. Then I got out. He rolled down the hill in the barrel. It got to the bottom. He got out. I got back in the barrel. Got out victoriously. And you can see the knee pads say, what is it? Homage and critique. And the crest says it ain't irony, it's agony. And the barrel was called the medium. And this is a performance I was commissioned to do at the Toronto Art Fair. So you see my uniform is kind of slashed open. That's a sharpening stone. One of our friends is of Italian descent, and his grandfather and uncle used this, pulled it through neighborhoods and sharpened knives and scissors and lawnmower blades and such. So I borrowed it so that I could sharpen the invisible knives of the people going in to the art fair. And I gave them out this card, and so I was there to sharpen invisible knives. And so I would hold my hands up beside their head and pedal the wheel for a while, and then I'd say, I think you're sharp enough, and then they would go into the art fair. And Tool of the State, sort of playing with the whole idea of picket signs and protesting and comparing it to other forms of crowd behavior. I don't want to over-explain it, but yeah, kind of goofball. You get them to do a group activity, you get them to talk about stuff. Those are all the things that go on quite often, or are the goals in certain relational aesthetics. So we worked with a cool hunting group, which is a targeting group that finds young people and as a demographic and polls them for things to help advertisers. We worked with them to author a presentation, and the people we got were people who had tested as having little or no interest in art. We got them together in a focus group. We gave them a presentation on relational aesthetics, and then we asked them to work as a group to create some relational aesthetic artworks. So that's what's showing on the screen there, and on the monitors is a transcript of the dialogue. And the other monitor has a view from the security camera in the room. Or no, that's the big monitors from the security camera, and then there's one that's through the glass, because we were sitting on the other side of the glass looking through, watching the focus group happen. Security camera obscura. So this is a big portable camera obscura. You put your head in, and there's a small hole, and it's a black chamber. And through the hole behind you, the light comes in, and there's a white wall inside it. So you see a camera obscura image of the environment behind you inside that chamber. And I had a uniform. This, once again, I'm using uniforms and a made-up enterprise to explore ideas of masculinity or being an employee. And in this case, I was employed by Pinhole Security Services. And I would go around town just during the Images Festival of Photography, and the theme at that year was the ubiquity of photography. And despite that theme, they had very little that was politicized in the whole festival. So I went around and poached their crowds as they were going into their events. And people would ask me, is this art, or what is this, what is that? And I would say, I'm sorry, I'm not authorized to divulge that information. It's proprietary information of my employer, Pinhole Security Services. And the crests say, for your security, you are not being recorded. And there's little buttons that said I can either confirm or deny my presence here. And I was giving those out for free. Experience Attractor was done with the Blackwood Gallery. I went and found some driftwood, and I painted it white, and then I would advertise, and people who wanted could have the driftwood mailed to them. And it was mailed not in a package, it was covered in white, so that as it traveled through the mail, it picked up scuffs and stuff. It developed a history, and then people could have the driftwood for a house guest for a while, and then they'd mail it to the next person. I would email them the address to send it to, and you'd email them or mail them the postage and such. Another theme and approaches, you see there's sculptures upstairs that deal with forms that are repurposed, dealing with hybrid meanings and mashups. And I deal with things like art historical works, pop cultural objects, culturally articulated artifacts, like things that are actually museologically presented, the made environment. I'm interested, in the meanings that things have, and working with that meaning as a raw material to then make other meanings, so bringing things together. That's the idea of a mashup in some senses, I guess. So the next works are along the lines of that approach or interest. Easy to Assemble is a sculpture, a public sculpture. It was first up at the Toronto Sculpture Garden, now it's at the Cambridge Sculpture Garden. And the idea is it's like a garden shed that's disassembling and frozen in space. And it's actually got a very deep foundation, steel structure, but the idea was to make it look like it's sort of flipping out into the air. I was also interested in things like it's timed so that I don't go on too long. With this sculpture, I was interested in the idea of an aesthetic that's removed from function, sort of like ready-mades, the idea of something that you can frustrate perception in a way that can be revelatory just by removing a bit of the function of the thing. Like it sort of still functions like a shelter, but it definitely doesn't function like a shed. There's a little bit of magic there and a bit of frustration, and that can maybe clear the synapses. Bed of pickets. When you look at it from above, it's pretty well a square surface with the points of the pickets are in a grid. I think I'm pretty influenced by Robert Gober and Sol LeWitt. This is kind of a way of looking through methods like that, but I think it's east meets west. There's the idea of maybe a more Protestant approach to spirituality where you deny the body, whereas in the East with the fakirs and their bed and nails, you more try and transcend the body. And also bringing those underlying principles that inevitably found their way, the spiritual principles found their way into minimalism. Critical care. So it's a Duchampian type of urinal that's been pierced by an Excalibur sword. The name critical care, I think, puts a different read on it. People are quite quick to think it's a sort of the one read is that, you pull the sword out and you become the new patriarch to inherit the mantle of Duchamp. But in another way, it can be read as that this thing has been injured and it needs care. So it's trying to put more of a double read on it, but it's definitely meant to be funny. But I came through school at the time when we were reading Lacan, Foucault, Descartes, or not Descartes, I forget the other, which one is it?
Maybe it's Derrida.
So there was a lot of psychoanalytics going on when I was in school, so this is very much, I think, it filtering its way out. Comes a time, I don't know any Neil Young fans out there, but it's a photo of a fellow who's dragged an IKEA shelf into a cemetery and placed it amongst the tombstones, and dealing in some ways with the idea of timelessness and things that don't last. And Nature of States is in the exhibition upstairs. I sampled imagery of plants, animals, landscape, and such from the flags of the world and brought them together to create kind of a landscape image and a flag for a kind of borderless, unified state, a way of examining how symbols can be used to define and divide us. Vomit Star was a collaboration with my friend Steve Rinke, who I've done video collaborations with in the past. An examination of in some ways, of the culture of fame. The video shows a lot of images of famous people with unfortunate things happening to the photos. And this is like a 5-foot star covered in fake vomit. One of the more critical pieces. Hoarders, season 1, episode 1, is also in the show upstairs. It's dealing with the series Hoarders, about people with that unfortunate condition. This is a tablet where I extracted a frame from a video of a DVD of this episode, and extracted the binary code that encodes the video on the DVD. I then translated that, into cuneiform, which the Babylonians used for accounting purposes on the clay tablets that you find in museums. And so having translated that binary into cuneiform, I then inscribed it on this tablet. And you'll see upstairs in the show, it would take, I don't know, Blair, is it 222 million or so tablets to make?
122,502.
Oh, okay, yeah.
299.
Yeah, so quite a few tablets to make that episode. And this is Selfie Mail, which is also in the show upstairs, where I took classical portrait busts and replaced the facial features with emoji or emoticons. I'm very interested in how we are adapting to our technology and our times, and how a lot is getting leveled off emotional depth types of engagement. So the sculpture kind of presents that in a way that is kind of unnerving. These are Zombie Economy. It's a series of paintings that are minimalist monochromes that have been boarded up like they're either a movie, in a zombie movie where you're trying to keep the zombies out, or they're a house where the people have gone bankrupt, the bank has foreclosed and it's been boarded up. So the name Zombie Economy playing off of that strange, convergence of how zombie movies are so popular now at a time when things are rough in the economy. I think there was a time when they said Stephen King wrote a book about how that happened with science fiction movies after the Cold War. So, but this is reclaimed wood. I bought it from a place that sells reclaimed wood so you can make your restaurant look really nice. Bumper stickers. These are the conceptual art bumper stickers that I did in collaboration with my friend Marianne McTrow. You may know her from the Cedar Tavern Singers, or Les Phonorealistes. They're a great group. And so, yeah, I break for deconstruction. Role-based artists make better lovers. If you're close enough to read this, your aesthetic is too relational. Yeah. Cup. These are paper cups that I had custom printed. They have 3 different logo treatments around them. Each one says, "Why are we here?" And I was thinking about, there's that quintessential moment where you're staring into your cup of coffee and you see it swirling and it looks like the universe, and you have an epiphany moment with your little cup of coffee, and then you throw it out. Rustic futurist air fresheners. So these are scented as new car, but these are trees. It's like the pine tree air fresheners, but these are the trees that they make to disguise cell phone towers. There's a big industry in that, and more so in the States, but we have them here as well. So this is literally a photo of a tree that's been disguised poorly to hide the towers, cell phone towers, because they want them to blend in somewhat, because they know people will resist them if they see how many are really around them. So, and rustic futurism, the slogan is "Tomorrow's yesterday's today." And they smell terrible. This is the Velveteen NQ19 Reaper drone hummingbird feeder, and it has a chamber in it. I cast it in resin and flocked it with blue flocking, so it's quite an approachable, cuddly Reaper. And it has a little flower underneath and a chamber that you can fill with sugar water, so the hummingbirds can fly and drink from under the nose of the drone, where the video camera would be located. And this is the last slide in the talk. These, I don't know if you have moleskins here, the little notebooks. they're all the rage in Toronto, and everyone has them to jot down their notes. So I came up with the idea, quite often people don't have a notepad, so they'll take a napkin and write on it. I think the guy who did the redesign for the Royal Ontario Museum, they've kept the napkin he wrote on. And so I decided, well, I'll make a moleskin book, but call it Napkin, and put napkins. These are cocktail napkins that I've bound, and these are exactly what the moleskins look like. And on it says, the legendary napkins used by inspired drunks caught without notepads or sketchbooks. Cocktail napkins wipe up spills and feverishly jot inspired sketches and pithy musings. So, and these are multiples. It's part of my practice to create these things that are then for sale. Multiples is an interesting subgenre that doesn't get a lot of play, but groups like General Idea help to advance it in Canada. And I've been doing that. I sell my multiples in Toronto at Art Metropole, and there's a gallery in Brooklyn called Fuseworks that also sell my multiples. So yeah, so that's the end of the slides. Thank you. I'm sorry it was so fast, but I'm available to talk about stuff if you would like.